Reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 2, entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized, text number 70. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text number 70. Apuryamanam achala pristam. Apuryamanam achala pristam. Apuryamanam achala pristam. Samudram apapravishyadvat. Samudram apapravishanti yadvat. Yadvat kamayang pravishanti sarve. Tadvat kamayang pravishanti sarve. Sa shantim apnato na kama kami. Sa shantim apnato na kama kami. Apuryamanam, always being filled. Achala pristam, steadily situated. Samudram, the ocean. Apaha, waters. Pravishanti, enter. Yadvat, as. Tadvat, so. Kamaha, desires. Yam, unto whom. Pravishanti, enter. Sarve, all. Saha, that person. Shantim, peace. Apnoti, achieves. Na, not. Kamakami, one who desires to fulfill desires. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Although the vast ocean is always filled with water, it is always, especially during the rainy season, being filled with much more water. But the ocean remains the same, steady. It is not agitated, nor does it cross beyond the limit of its brink. That is also true of a person fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one has the material body, the demands of the body for sense gratification will continue. The devotee, however, is not disturbed by such desires because of his fullness. A Krishna conscious man is not in need of anything because the Lord fulfills all his material necessities. Therefore, he is like the ocean, always full in himself. Desires may come to him like the waters of the rivers that flow into the ocean, but he's steady in his activities, and he's not even slightly disturbed by desires for sense gratification. That is the proof of a Krishna conscious man, one who has lost all inclinations for material sense gratification, although the desires are present. Because he remains satisfied in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he can remain steady, like the ocean, and therefore enjoy full peace. Others, however, who want to fulfill desires, even up to the limit of liberation, what to speak of material success, never attain peace. The fruitive workers, the salvationists, and also the yogis who are after mystic powers are all unhappy because of unfulfilled desires. But the person in Krishna consciousness is happy in the service of the Lord, and he has no desires to be fulfilled. In fact, he does not even desire liberation from the so-called material bondage. The devotees of the Krishna have no material desires, and therefore they are in perfect peace. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Gadim Yat Kripa Taraham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Paramanandamadavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Apurivanam means always filled up. And this is described here as the samudra, or the ocean. The ocean always remains still, even though so much water flows into the ocean. All the rivers all over the world, they flow into the ocean. So much water is going into the ocean. But we never see that the ocean overflows its bank, unless there's a tsunami or something like that. But not because of the rivers flowing inside. It keeps its boundaries. And it remains still, steady. So a person in Krishna consciousness is compared to the ocean. The person in Krishna consciousness remains steady. Even though there may be so many desires that come, because the living entity cannot exist without desires. That is part of the characteristic of the living entity, is to have desires. So the idea of some so-called spiritualist to become desireless is not actually possible. However, that doesn't mean that one cannot dovetail one's desires in the service of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada gives the example that we all have a desire to eat nice edibles. So we can make many different nice preparations and offer them to Krishna, and Krishna partakes of that offering, because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, if you offer me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I'll accept that. So Krishna accepts that offering, and then he leaves his prasadam. So by taking the Lord's prasadam, or the mercy of the Lord, we fulfill our desire to have nice edibles, but at the same time, it's devotional service. By that activity, we think of Krishna, because prasadam, Srila Prabhupada describes, is not ordinary rice, dal, and sabji. It's mixed with the mercy of the Lord. It's become transcendental by being offered to the Lord with love and devotion. So this is one example how one engages one's desires in serving Krishna. Srila Prabhupada used to engage the devotees according to their propensities. There was one devotee lady who knew how to paint. She liked to paint. So Srila Prabhupada engaged her in painting. And many of the illustrations that we see in the books today are painted by that same lady. Her name was Jadharani. Right? And how did she do that? Well, she didn't do it according to her own imagination. Srila Prabhupada would guide her what to paint about Krishna, either illustrating one of Krishna's pastimes or illustrating a point in the philosophy. Like there's one painting that she did where you see this person's face, right? And that person likes to sleep so much, right? So you see the face of the person kind of morphing from a human face into the face of a bear, right? Because bears, they hibernate during the winter and they sleep for 6 months. So, you know, as a human being, how much can you sleep, right? Even if you're a real good sleeper, probably just 10 hours or so, right? Your back gets tired after that. But a bear can sleep for 6 months, right? So, in order to facilitate the living entity's desire to sleep, that living entity can have the body of a bear, right? Similarly, in this way, she made a painting depicting this, right? But, of course, it was under the direction of Srila Prabhupada, and that's how devotional service is performed. We come in contact with this material world, and due to our desire to try to lord it over the material world, we become more entangled. And Srila Prabhupada gives the example of milk. If you drink milk, and you drink too much milk, you can get diarrhea if you drink too much milk, right? But the cure for that is to take some dahi, yogurt, right? So what is yogurt? Yogurt is also milk, right? And in the hands of a expert physician, the same thing that caused the disease can turn around and cause our cure. Like that, devotional service is performed. The material world, with the mentality that I am the enjoyer, is a cause of our suffering. But that same material energy, when used in the service of Krishna, under the direction of Krishna's devotee, it becomes a source of steadiness. One becomes peaceful. One becomes satisfied. The mentality of trying to lord it over material nature, with that mentality, the living entity never becomes peaceful, never becomes satisfied, always is hankering after something, are lamenting some loss. So this verse explains about a person who is steady, right? Fixed in Krishna consciousness, the person becomes very steady. In the material world, there's always some kind of upheaval, and we react to that. The material consciousness is, we're reacting to the impulses and the inputs that we get. We react to that. It happens every day. Somebody says something to us, and we become very upset. In the train, we get in the train, and it's so crowded, you have to push your way in. And when you push your way in, obviously you're going to push somebody else. Usko dakkar marega. And then that guy says, "Hey, kya, tera baap ka gadi hai?" And then our mind becomes chakkar. And mere baap ke kyon gali dega? Right? So it just snowballs more and more. But for the devotee of the Lord, they can be steady. They can be controlled. Huh? Because their consciousness is fixed in Krishna, because their desires are dovetailed in relationship with Krishna, therefore they become satisfied, they become peaceful. They don't react to the material nature in the same way when the material nature acts on them. Look at Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was born in a Muslim family. And some envious Hindus went to the Nawab Hussain, the Muslim ruler, and he said, just see, he's a Muslim, but he's chanting Hare Krishna. So the Nawab said, okay, call him. He said, you were born in a Muslim family, how are you chanting Hare Krishna? You stop this chanting business. Do your namaz. So Haridas didn't stop chanting. He continued to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So the king ordered that he should be beat in 22 marketplaces until he dies. Huh? So they took him one marketplace and they beat him. They took him to another marketplace and they beat Haridas Thakur again and again in so many marketplaces. But Haridas wasn't dying. So they were running out of marketplaces and still he was alive. So the guards that were beating him became worried. If he doesn't die, the king will kill us. So they were discussing with themselves and they were in anxiety what to do. So Haridas said, oh, you want me to die? They said, they felt ashamed because they saw that this is a very spiritually powerful person, right? Even though they're beating him, he's not affected. They said, yes, sir, what else? We have our families, what can we do? So Haridas said, okay, and like he was dead. So they took his body and they threw it in the river, and Haridas swam away. You know? He swam to the other side of the Ganga. And then the word came to the king that Haridas was dead, but they threw him in the river and he came alive again. So then the king also became worried. This must be a great saintly person. So this is an example of someone fixed in Krishna consciousness. Of course, that's Haridas Thakur's, no one can imitate, a very elevated devotee of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna. But it serves as an example for us so that we can learn gradually how to become fixed in Krishna, how to become steady. Many times in Srila Prabhupada's letters to the devotees, they would ask many questions about how to do devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada would explain, just be steady. Just be steady in your service. So for Haridas Thakur, that meant chanting, 1 lakh names every day. But everyone's not on that platform. Everyone has a different level of devotional service that they can do, right? So we should fix up some regulated amount of service to Krishna, whether it's chanting or reading or doing some other kind of service, right? All of these activities are performed with the body for the pleasure of Krishna. When the body has various parts, there's hands, there's legs, there's head, right? Now when the hand is connected to the body, it serves a function for the whole body, right? It grabs things and can perform so many works, but not individually in relationship to the whole body, isn't it? If you cut off the hand and throw it, it becomes dysfunctional. It's still a hand, but it doesn't function because it's not in relation to the whole body. So the living entity is just like that. Huh? When the living entity is performing activities in the service of the Supreme Lord for the pleasure of Krishna, it becomes functional. It becomes functional as a part of the Supreme Whole. Om Purna Purnam Idam Idam. The Supreme Lord is the complete whole. And we are fragmental parts of the Supreme Whole. So as long as we're serving the whole, the complete whole, Lord Krishna, then we become functional. But as soon as we separate, it can never be separate, but we imagine that we're separate, and we try to find our happiness by satisfying our senses, then it becomes an incompatible situation, Prabhupada says. Right? The spiritual spark, living entity that is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss, Satchidananda, tries to find happiness in the Asat, Achit, and Nirananda. That's the situation of this material world. What is this body? This body is dull matter, just like this column. It only appears to have life because the living entity is inside. As soon as the living entity goes outside of the body, what happens? Right? You burn it or bury it. Or what do the Parsis do? They have the vultures eat it. Right? No use. No use. So what makes the body useful? Because the living entity is inside. But if the living entity foolishly thinks that because he has a material body, therefore he will enjoy the material body, that's foolishness. It's like, what will you do to enjoy this table? Right? It's dead matter. It's dull matter. Right? However, when the body is used in the service of Krishna, then the body becomes a vehicle. It becomes a method and a means to obtain the Supreme. So everybody wants something in life. We want to achieve something in life. But we're misdirected. We've been misdirected. We've been diverted from the real goal of life by so many temporary goals, right? So devotional service means to reorient ourselves, to find out what is the Shreya Uttamam, Paramartha, the highest thing. We have to set our standard for that. If someone goes to the king and says, "Oh, my dear king, give me a benediction." And the king says, "Yes, what do you want?" He says, "Give me 5 rupees." Is that a very intelligent person? Huh? But that's what everyone in the material world is doing, right? They come before Shri Shri Radha Raspi Hari, and they say, and they ask for some material benefit. Help my business, get my daughter married, help my son pass the test. These are all small things. Huh? You don't think that Krishna doesn't know your daughter needs to be married? He already knows. Why you're bothering him? Huh? We should ask for the Paramartha, Shreya Uttamam. Right? Give me your pure devotional service. Help me to taste your holy name. Help me to engage in your service with my senses, my mind, my intelligence. This is Paramartha, the highest thing. There was once a lady, she was a village lady, and she used to go to the forest and collect wood. And she got a big bundle of wood, and she put it on her head, and she was carrying it out of the forest. And after some time, it became very heavy on her head, and she became very tired and weak, and the pile of wood fell down. So she began to cry. And she began to pray to the Lord, "Oh Lord, help me." And just then the Lord came before this lady, and he said, "What's the problem? You're crying. Don't cry, I'm here to help you." And she said, "Oh, my dear Lord, I'm carrying this wood. It was so heavy it fell down, and I can't pick it up." He said, "So what do you want? Can you help put this wood back on my head?" So the Lord said, "Okay." And he helped her put the wood back on her head. Right? She could have asked for anything, but rather she asked to put the burden back on her head. So this is the way we approach the Lord. We could ask for anything from the Lord, but we ask for some paltry material thing. And that's the way of material life. Right? That's the way of material existence. If somebody is hitting us in the shoulder with a hammer, right? And we say, "Oh, stop that," right? And they said, "Okay." And they start hitting you in your leg instead. Is that solving your problem? Huh? But the material energy is just like that. Always creating some kind of disturbance. If it's not this, it's that. You can't get away from it. You can't escape. She's much more powerful than we are. So what to do? The conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is to render devotional service. We have desires, we have senses, but to engage our desires in the pleasure of Krishna and engage our senses and try to satisfy the senses of Krishna. This is the solution to the problems. So we can go on to verse number 71. Vihaya kaman yaha sarvang pumangs chariti nishfriha nirmamo nirdahankara sashantim adigacchati. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship, and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain peace, real peace. Purport. To become desireless means not to desire anything for sense gratification. In other words, desire for becoming Krishna conscious is actually desirelessness. To understand one's actual position as the eternal servitor of Krishna, without falsely claiming this material body to be oneself, and without falsely claiming proprietorship over anything in the world, is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. One who is situated in this perfect stage knows that because Krishna is the proprietor of everything, everything must be used for the satisfaction of Krishna. Arjuna did not want to fight for his own sense gratification, but when he became fully Krishna conscious, he fought because Krishna wanted him to fight. For himself, there was no desire to fight, but for Krishna, the same Arjuna fought to his best ability. Real desirelessness is desire for the satisfaction of Krishna, not an artificial attempt to abolish desires. The living entity cannot be desireless or senseless, but he does have to change the quality of his desires. A materially desireless person certainly knows that everything belongs to Krishna. Ishavasham idam sarvam. Therefore, he does not falsely claim proprietorship over anything. This transcendental knowledge is based on real self-realization, namely knowing perfectly well that every living entity is the eternal part and parcel of Krishna in spiritual identity, and that the eternal position of the living entity is therefore never on the level of Krishna or greater than him. This understanding of Krishna consciousness is the basic principle of real peace. So, this verse further explains what we were already discussing, and that is about how to become what is desirelessness. And as Srila Prabhupada explains, desirelessness means having a desire to satisfy Krishna, right? And that's not very difficult. It's not that you have to be very rich and then you can satisfy Krishna, right? Krishna says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhakti priyachati tadaham bhakti paritam ashnaya pramitatmanaha. If you offer me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit or water, I will accept, right? So anyone can obtain a flower or some fruit or some water, right? Leaf means a tulsi leaf, and offer that to Krishna, right? The key to it, however, is to offer it with love. The process is to learn how to love Krishna, how to make Krishna dear to us, and how to become dear to Krishna. This is what devotional service means. This is the science of bhakti yoga. And if one attains that, if one becomes dear to Krishna, then that is the highest perfection. That's the Shreya Uttamam. We're all looking for the highest thing. We all want the best thing. And Shastra says that the best thing is this: establishing one's loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. But as long as we think that we can satisfy ourselves here in this material world, then we will not be able to establish that relationship with Krishna. But it's not that one can immediately do that. It's a gradual process, and it requires a expert guidance. One has to learn that science properly from the person who knows the science. Just like if you want to be a carpenter, you want to be able to build furniture, so you have to get guidance from the expert carpenter, and he can show you the trade so that you can also expertly make furniture, right? Otherwise it won't be possible. In the same way, if we want to develop love for Krishna, then we need to take guidance from the devotee of Krishna, one who has already understood Krishna's position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Sunam Bonam, the all-attractive person. And if we take guidance from that person, then we can similarly learn the art of devotion to Krishna. Otherwise, one has to remain here in the material world, continuously changing bodies, sometime as Lord Brahma, sometime as a worm in stool. Even in the spiritual world, if you want, you can change your form. Sometimes the devotee may be in the form of a blade of grass in the spiritual world, and can change to have the form of a flower in Krishna's garland, or be Krishna's flute, or be Krishna's cowherd boyfriend, or one of the gopis. Right? There's different relationships with Krishna in the spiritual world. Those relationships in the material world are there because those same relationships are there in the spiritual world. Right? Here you can be someone's friend, is it not? You can be someone's servant. You can be someone's parent or someone's lover. Right? So those relationships are there in the spiritual world. The relationships here in the material world, there's always some kind of difficulty with the relationships. Right? We read in the newspaper, husband and wife, right? Husband killed the wife, or the wife killed the husband, right? Some problem, tension. We all had experienced someone we thought was our friend, right? But then they turn around and stabbed us in the back, right? It happens. That's the nature of material relationships. But the relationship with Krishna in the spiritual world is not like that. Right? Krishna is always our Suridam Sarvabhutanam. He's a friend of all living entities, whether they're devotees or not. But he has special attention for the devotees because the devotees are so dependent on him. So many things were discussed in this second chapter. There was about the Vedas. Krishna talks about the Vedas, talks about karma, karma kanda, gyan. He hints in these last verses that we read about what is devotional service, right? He talks about the nature of the body as opposed to the soul. He talks about duty, our responsibilities. So therefore this chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is called the Content Summarized, because basically in this chapter all the different subject matters of the Bhagavad Gita are touched on. So as we go further into the other verses and the other chapters, the things that were touched will be more elaborately explained in the subsequent chapters of Bhagavad Gita as we go on reading. Well, let us read the last verse now in this chapter. Esha brahmani stita partha nainam prapya vimuyati stit vashyam antakalepi brahma nirvanam richati. That is the way of spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. If one is thus situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. One can attain Krishna consciousness or divine life at once, within a second. Or one may not attain such a state of life even after millions of births. It's only a matter of understanding and accepting the fact. Katvanga Maharaj attained the state of life just in a few minutes before his death by surrendering unto Krishna. Nirvana means ending the process of materialistic life. According to Buddhist philosophy, there's only void after the completion of this material life. But Bhagavad Gita teaches differently. Actual life begins after the completion of this material life. For the gross materialist, it is sufficient to know that one has to end this materialistic way of life. But for persons who are spiritually advanced, there's another life after this materialistic life. Before ending this life, if one fortunately becomes Krishna conscious, he at once attains the stage of Brahma Nirvana. There's no difference between the kingdom of God and the devotional service of the Lord, since both of them are on the absolute platform. To be engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord is to have attained the spiritual kingdom. In the material world there are activities of sense gratification, where in the spiritual world there are activities of Krishna consciousness. Advanced attainment of Krishna consciousness, even during this lifetime, is immediate attainment of Brahman, and one who is situated in Krishna consciousness has certainly already entered into the kingdom of God. Brahman is just the opposite of matter. Therefore, Brahmi Sthiti means not on the platform of material activities. Devotional service of the Lord is accepted in the Bhagavad Gita as the liberated stage. Sa gunan samatityaita brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Therefore, Brahmi Sthiti is liberation from material bondage. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has summarized the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita as being the contents for the whole text. In the Bhagavad Gita, the subject matters are Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. In the second chapter, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga have been clearly discussed, and a glimpse of Bhakti Yoga has also been given as the contents for the complete text. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of its contents. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions? Yes?
What shall we have to ask from Lord? Either his service or his abode. In these two things, which one is great? And what only we have to ask from Lord in these two?
If we ask for the Lord's service, if we're fully engaged in the Lord's service, then we're already in the Lord's abode. Because there's no difference from pure devotional service and being in the Lord's abode. Once one devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, should we be more concerned with preaching or trying to be Krishna conscious? And Srila Prabhupada said that when you're doing service, that is being Krishna conscious. Rendering service for the pleasure of Krishna. And what does preaching mean? Preaching means to try to help other people to be Krishna conscious, so that they can understand about what is the goal of life, how to become really happy and successful in this rare birth of a human being, human body. So real devotional service is service to Krishna. Iha yasya Hare dasya karmana manasa gira nakiva vapivastastu jivan mukta suchite. That one who is engaged, one's words, mind, body, in the service of Krishna, they're jivan mukta. That even though they're in a material body, apparently material body, they are jivan mukta, they're already liberated. But a devotee is not even interested in liberation. As Mahaprabhu prays, Janmani Janmani Ishvare, birth after birth. I don't mind taking birth again and again, but always keep me fixed up in your devotional service. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays for. Because the devotee knows, if one's fully engaged in Krishna's service, one is with Krishna. And that's what it means to be in Krishna's abode, is to be with Krishna. So the devotee is prepared to go anywhere, right? He can go to heaven, or he can go to hell, but he wants Krishna's service, that's all. To be engaged in the service of the Lord. That's his only desire, to serve Krishna, to be useful for the service of Krishna. There's a story of one time Krishna had a headache, and so he told Narada Muni that you go ask these Brahmins, if I get the dust from the feet of my devotee, then put it on my headache will go away. So Narada went to the Brahmins and said, Krishna has a headache. He wants the dust from the feet of his devotees. He'll put it on his head and the headache will go away. So what did the Brahmins say? They said, no, how can we give you the dust of our feet, put it on the Supreme Lord's head? We'll go to hell. Nahi dega. So Narada went back to Krishna. Wo dene wala nahi hai. Krishna said, never mind. You go ask the gopis. Huh? So Narada went to the gopis. He said, Krishna has a headache. He needs the dust from the feet of his devotees. And then he'll be able to put it on his head and cure his headache. So the gopi said, yes, take the dust. Krishna has a headache. Let him be cured from his headache. And Narada said, you're not afraid? You'll go to hell? Put your dust of your feet on Krishna's head? They said, no, that's all right. Whatever happened, happened. But Krishna's headache should be cured. That's all. So this is the example of the pure devotees of the Lord. The unalloyed devotees of the Lord. Their happiness is the happiness of Krishna. They're not interested in anything else. That's pure devotional service. Any other questions? Yes?
As I got information that one does not go into the lower species of life after getting devotional service. So, but as informed, also you said that one can go down from Brahma down to the ant. And we see as the position of Brahma is very authoritative, as one has to perform a lot of austerities and does then get into such a position.
Yeah.
So how is that possible?
It's like a chain. Slowly, different forms, sinking down from Lord Brahma, which is the highest body you could get in the material world. But then you could get a Chanara, Siddha, or demigod body, and then different levels of human bodies, and then beastly body, and then plant life, fish life, amoebic life, and that's a worm and stool. So gradually.
So it is not clear, since as told one who has got devotional service does not go down from the human birth life, does not step into.
That's up to Krishna. Yes, normally you're right, but what about the example of Bharat Maharaj? He was a very elevated devotee. He was worshipping Shalagram Shila, and on the level of bhava, he had great attachment to Krishna. But he gave up his devotional activities because of his attachment to a deer. And he died thinking of the deer, and he took birth as a deer. So normally you're right, by rendering even a little bit of devotional service, one is protected from sinking back down into the animal species of life. But then Krishna's independent, he can do what he likes. And sometimes Krishna puts a devotee in a particular situation just to increase that devotee's desire to have his pure devotional service. And a devotee sees like that. Bharat Maharaj, even though he was in the form of the deer, he remembered his previous life. And therefore he situated himself, even though he had the body of a deer, in an ashram of devotees, so that he was continuously hearing about Krishna And then in his next birth, he became Jad Bharat. So generally it's true, but then it's up to Krishna. Krishna will deal with his devotees as per their needs and requirements. And a devotee always feels like that I'm in this situation by my karma, or Krishna has put me in this situation for my advancement, so that help me surrender. I deserve worse, but I've got a token result of my previous activities. Is that okay? Any other questions?
What do you think in love, like now, our mind frame should be while offering Patram Pusha Phalam to Lord Krishna. So what should we think when you're offering Lord Krishna? You should have to chant any mantra specifically, or like what should
Yeah, there's mantras that you can chant when you're offering things to Krishna. There's mantras that you can chant, but basically you're offering it to Krishna. You know, you're trying to satisfy Krishna with this offering, whatever it is. And there's rules. There's ways. Like if you're cooking something for Krishna, you would never taste it before you offer it to Krishna, right? The cook in the restaurant, he tastes and see how much salt is there and if he spiced it correctly. But a devotee who's cooking for Krishna never does like that. Krishna is the only one that will taste it first, right? So there's a consciousness, and that it requires training. How to serve Krishna in his form of the Archa Vigraha. Krishna and Krishna's form are non-different. So Krishna is so kind that he comes in a form that we can see and we can deal with. Otherwise, you can't experience Krishna with your material senses. Ata Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhavid Graimindriyai. He can't be experienced. But out of his kindness, he takes a form that we can interact with, such as his deity form. And we can dress, bathe, feed, cook far, sew far, and do so many other things far. And Krishna's transcendental form, just like Krishna's name is non-different, his form is also non-different. So when the deity is established in the temple, under the direction of the Acharya, the spiritual master, then that becomes very conducive for advancing in devotional service. But there's rules, there's regulations, there's offenses to be avoided while worshipping Krishna, right? Do's and don'ts. Well, those are all mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion. Any other questions?
Before coming to Krishna consciousness, we have independent nature.
Even after we come to Krishna conscious, we have an independent nature.
Yes. Then devotee, we taking guidance and he tells us we do this and still we are trying to become that independent just can be used in Krishna service. How can
Yes, you can. You have your independence, whether to serve Krishna or not serve Krishna, or in the way that you want to serve Krishna, right? And that should be according to what our psychophysical nature is, right? We may have some talent that we can offer to Krishna. Someone is good at music, so they can make music for Krishna. And I gave the example during the lecture, someone may like to paint, know how to paint, they can paint pictures for Krishna. So many things one can do for the pleasure of Krishna. So we can use our individuality in trying to serve Krishna. trying to please Krishna. But so we have that independence, but you can use that independence to serve Krishna, or you can misuse that independence and not serve Krishna. Right? It's like the darkness is over here and the light's over here. And either you're in the shadow or you're in the light. You know, you're in Krishna consciousness or you're in Maya. So devotional service means to have association of persons who are in Krishna consciousness, and I'll also be in Krishna consciousness by that association. Because in this second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Sangat sanjayate kama. By your sangha, you'll develop desires. So if you associate with Krishna conscious persons, you'll develop a desire to be Krishna conscious. And if we associate with persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness, then it would be very difficult to develop a desire to serve Krishna. You'll develop so many other desires. Like if you associate with people that drink, you'll also drink. If you associate with people that smoke, you'll also smoke. So by your association, you develop desire. If you keep yourself fixed up in Krishna conscious association, then you'll develop desires to serve Krishna. And those are the real natural desires, and they're what cause the living entity to be peaceful, satisfied, shantim, full, complete, not lacking, not lamenting, not hankering. Is that okay? Yes.
The question, like Christy, what I could understand is, we have this nature to be independent before coming to Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
So we decide things on our own. And after coming to Krishna consciousness also,
Yeah.
we have this independent mentality.
Yeah.
So can this independent mentality be used in Krishna's service? I'm independent.
Every day you're using your independent mentality by deciding to serve Krishna. Because every day you wake up, you can choose not to serve, or you can choose to serve. So you're using your God-given independence every time you choose to serve Krishna. Correctly you're using. And if you choose not to serve, then it's the same independence, but you're not using it properly.
Can we like when we're talking of independent, use of independent Krishna service?
Ultimately the living entity is always controlled. He's controlled.
They're not independent.
We think we're in the controller, but actually we're controlled. If we surrender to Krishna, then we're controlled by Krishna. If we don't surrender to Krishna, then we're controlled by Maya. But anyway, we're controlled. We're not the controllers. We're the cooperators. Right? If we cooperate with Krishna, we'll be happy, we'll be satisfied. And if we surrender to Maya, we'll be kicked. Nicely. But either way, we're using our independence. We have our independence. We continue to have our independence. To serve Krishna or not to serve Krishna.
So can I serve Krishna without serving his representatives?
Very difficult. You can, but very difficult. And why would you want to take the difficult route? If there's a lift, you'll go by the stairs? 100-story building? you'll take the lift. So if you serve Krishna's representative, it's like taking the lift. And trying to serve Krishna without that guidance is like going by the stairs, 100 stories. Difficult. Possible, but difficult. And Krishna recommends Tadvidi Pradipantena Pariprashnena Sevaya Upadekshanti Te Jnanam Jnaninas Tattva Darshanaha. You go to the Tattva Darshan, and what do? Make inquiry and do service. Because that's conducive. When Krishna sees that you're following his instruction, going to his devotee, rendering service, and inquiring submissively, then he gives you mercy. Ultimately, we need mercy. And that's the way to get mercy. So although, yes, it's possible, but all the examples in Srimad Bhagavatam, the mercy of a devotee is there. Whether it's Prahlad, Dhruva. Dhruva, small boy, wanted to have a kingdom greater than his grandfather's kingdom. And he was determined. Right? But along the way he got the mercy of Narada Muni, who told him the chant, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So by that mercy he saw the darshan of the Lord. And when he saw the darshan of the Lord, he had no any other desire but to serve the Lord. And he realized that I was looking for pieces of broken glass, but I found the diamond. Dhruva Maharaj. So we don't even know what the diamond is, but by association with the devotee of the Lord, we can understand what is really important, what is not important. Is that okay? Any other questions? Time's up. Okay, one last question.
Pre-planned destiny by worship Krishna.
Then you change this pre-planned destiny.
Yes, why not? Yes. That's our pre-planned destiny, means our karma. The good and bad things we did in our previous life, in this life we have to suffer or we enjoy. Right? But as soon as you come in contact with Krishna, those things start to change. Right? In this very same lifetime. It's described in the Nectar of Devotion that one who goes before the deity of Krishna and claps his hands and chants the holy name, all the lines in his hand change. You know, palmistry, this line means you live this long, this one means this one means that, this yoga, that yoga. But if you clap before Krishna, it all changes. In other words, no one can estimate the good fortune of someone who surrenders to Krishna. Their good fortune is unestimable. And in this age it becomes very easy to worship Krishna. In previous ages, sages were aspiring and doing meditation for thousands of years to obtain the darshan of the Lord. But one can very quickly attain advancement in devotional service in this age by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi.